Ethan liked to cover my eyes when he kissed me. That is, until the day I found his diary, filled with my brother's name. The last page had just one sentence. If only Caleb's eyes were like his. Caleb, Ethan's a really good guy, super nice. You'll see when you get there. His place is just a few steps from campus. Way more comfortable than the dorms. On the phone, my brother's voice had that usual, coaxing a kid kind of laugh. Nice? I looked up, scanning the crowd in the arrivals area. Soon, I locked onto a figure. The man was leaning against an expensive black sedan, standing tall and straight. My heart skipped a beat, and I instinctively tightened my grip on my suitcase handle. My brother never mentioned his friend was so handsome. I worked up the courage to walk over, asking tentatively, "Excuse me, are you Ethan?" He looked up at the sound of my voice, his gaze landing on me. His eyes were dark, without much warmth. He gave me a quick once-over, his tone flat. "Caleb?" I nodded. "Yeah, that's me." He gave a slight nod back. "Get in." With that, he opened the driver's side door and got in, showing no intention of helping me with my luggage. I was a little taken aback, but I managed to heave my heavy suitcase into the trunk myself, panting slightly from the effort. When I settled into the passenger seat, the car was filled with a crisp, pleasant, woody scent. Just like him, clean but distant. I snuck glances at him out of the corner of my eye. My brother said he was nice, so why did I only get an aloof, keep your distance vibe? It wasn't until the car turned into a quiet, upscale neighborhood that I truly understood what my brother meant by his family has a little money in New York. Ethan got out of the car smoothly and walked ahead of me. He changed his shoes and gave an order to a well-dressed, gentle-looking middle-aged man who came to greet him. "Robert, show him around and get him settled in the guest room." Then he turned to me with the same cool politeness. "If you need anything, tell Robert or the housekeeper. I have some things to take care of." After speaking, he headed upstairs, leaving me with the friendly-faced Robert. For the next few days, I felt like a poor kid who'd stumbled into a palace, exploring the astonishingly large house. Ethan was busy, so I rarely saw him. Even on the rare occasions we met in the dining room, he would just nod, seldom starting a conversation. A few days later, one afternoon, I was lying on the living room sofa, kicking my legs. A video call from my brother came through. "Caleb, how's it going? Are you settling in okay?" On the screen, my brother had a warm smile. I pouted, burying half my face in a sofa cushion, my voice muffled. "Humph. You finally remembered to ask? Leaving me here all alone." My brother laughed, his tone even gentler. Is my little prince feeling neglected? Be good. I'll fly back to see you as soon as my classes are over. I'll bring you the latest game console, how about that?" I grumbled a few more times before finally, under my brother's patient coaxing, I said reluctantly, "You'd better come back soon." After hanging up, my mood had just started to lift when I rolled over and was startled to see Ethan standing not far behind the sofa. I jumped, sitting up straight in an instant, my face flushing. He was expressionless, just giving me his usual nod. Then he turned, walked to the kitchen for a glass of water, and went upstairs without another word. I came home from school that day feeling light-headed and dizzy. I ate a little and retreated to my room. That night, I huddled under the covers. My throat was burning, and my mind started to get fuzzy. In my days, I felt like I was back in the small apartment my brother and I shared. A wave of self-pity and discomfort washed over me. I fumbled for my phone and, on pure instinct, dialed my brother. "Leo," my voice was so hoarse it didn't sound like me. I started whining tearfully. "I feel so sick. When are you coming back? You don't even care about me anymore." My brother sounded frantic on the other end of the line. He was saying something, but I couldn't make out a single word. I just kept rambling. "It's so cold here. And Ethan, he completely ignores me. You lied, he's not nice at all. I'm so bored all by myself. Leo, I miss you. I should have just stayed in the dorms. I've been living on my own for 2 years, and you still don't trust me. I'm not a kid anymore." I don't know how long I rambled, maybe half an hour, maybe longer. Eventually, I ran out of energy and slipped back into a semi-conscious state. I don't know how much time passed, but through the haze, I sensed my bedroom door open. Then I was carefully lifted into someone's arms. I instinctively thought it was my brother, who I'd been dreaming of for so long. I wrapped my arms around his neck with all my strength. I pressed my feverish cheek against the cool skin of his neck and whimpered, "Leo, you're finally back. I feel awful." The person holding me seemed to stiffen for a moment but didn't respond, just walked quickly out of the room. The next time I was aware, I was lying in a soft bed. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic. I struggled to open my heavy eyelids. Through my blurry vision, I saw Ethan with his back to me. He was standing by the hospital room window, speaking on the phone in a low voice. "Yeah, the fever's down a bit, he's stable, don't worry." His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it, almost coaxing. On the other end, my brother's voice, agitated and unhappy, was faint but audible through the receiver. "Ethan, if it's really not convenient, if it's too much trouble for you, I'll just have Caleb come back." "Leo," Ethan interrupted him. Then, his voice carried a rare note of helplessness and apology as he continued, "I'm sorry. It was my fault for not paying attention. I promise it won't happen again. Okay? Don't be angry." My brother was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was muffled and held a hint of vulnerability. "Ethan, Caleb is the only family I have left." I couldn't make out what Ethan said after that. His voice was even lower. All I knew was that my eyelids felt like they were lined with lead, and they slid shut again. My last conscious thought drifted through my mind. My brother and Ethan, they really are close. Even someone as cold as Ethan would talk to my brother in a tone like that. When I woke up, the sky outside was bright. I turned my head and immediately saw Ethan sitting on the sofa. His eyes were closed, as if he were taking a short nap. He wasn't home last night. My emergency must have called him back in a hurry. I'd caused him trouble. As if sensing my gaze, Ethan opened his eyes. "You're awake?" His voice was a little raspy, the way it is when you first wake up. He stood up, walked to the bedside, and casually reached out to feel my forehead. The touch of his cool fingertips on my skin made my heart skip a beat. "Fever's gone. How did you get such a high fever all of a sudden? Weren't you dressed warmly enough?" I was a little overwhelmed by the attention and quickly explained in a small voice, I didn't realize how cold it gets at night in New York in the fall." Ethan listened and just nodded without saying anything. A couple of days after I was discharged and returned to that big, empty mansion, Robert had people deliver several large gift boxes. Inside were all sorts of fall and winter clothes, a complete wardrobe. I stared at the pile of expensive clothes at a loss. "Ethan, this is too much. I can't accept it." Ethan said calmly, "It gets cold in New York. Your brother's not here, so I can't let you freeze." He paused, then added, "I've been too busy the last few days. I've neglected you." In the end, I accepted the clothes, embarrassed but with a warm feeling inside. After I got sick, Ethan's attitude toward me seemed to change subtly. He still didn't talk much, and his expression was often cold, but his actions became much more considerate. He would remember which days I had late study sessions on my schedule. And no matter how busy he was, his car would always be waiting at the same spot under the classroom building, right on time. Once, I was feeling down after bombing an exam for one of my major courses. When Ethan got home from work, he took one look at me but didn't ask much. The next day, when I got back from school, I found the latest game console next to the TV. Robert smiled and said, "Mr. Ethan had it bought for you." I hugged the console, my heart feeling full to bursting. He would remember my pollen allergy, remember the dishes I didn't like, remember. These casual acts of kindness were like little pebbles tossed into the lake of my heart. Coupled with his flawlessly handsome face, I found my gaze on him slowly shifting from initial gratitude to an uncontrollable crush. My heart had completely fallen for him. That pivotal night came as a bit of a surprise. I was video chatting with my brother. On the screen, he had a smile that was both shy and full of happiness. He had a girlfriend. She was a very sweet and lovely girl. I was genuinely happy for him. After hanging up, I was still smiling. Just then, there was a noise from the entryway. Ethan was home. His steps were a bit unsteady, and he smelled strongly of alcohol. I rushed over to him and saw an unnatural flush on his cheeks and a dazed look in his eyes. He was drunk. I had never seen him like this. Stripped of his usual icy shell, he seemed almost vulnerable. "Ethan, are you okay?" I steadied his swaying body. He looked up at me, his eyes unfocused, and mumbled a response. I struggled to help him to the living room sofa. I remembered the sobering soup Robert always kept in the kitchen. I quickly went to heat a bowl and brought it over. "Ethan, drink some of this. You'll feel better." I carefully scooped up a spoonful and brought it to his lips. He drank it obediently, then raised his eyes and stared at me. Those eyes, usually so clear and cold, were now moist with intoxication. He just looked at me, his expression complicated. Suddenly, he reached out, and his warm palm gently covered my eyes. My heart began to race wildly. Then, he leaned in slightly, his warm, alcohol-scented breath brushing against my cheek. The next second, a soft, burning sensation was pressed against my lips. My mind went completely blank. The bowl nearly slipped from my hands. It was as if the whole world had frozen. The only thing that existed was the strange, thrilling feeling on my lips. He kissed me? Did that mean Ethan liked me too? An overwhelming wave of excitement and happiness washed over me. It made me forget to think, forget to breathe. All I could do was stand there rigidly, accepting this sudden, intoxicating kiss. The next morning, when Ethan woke up, he seemed a little dazed about what had happened the night before. As I brought him his breakfast, he gently took my wrist and asked in a low voice, "Caleb, last night, did I scare you?" I shook my head, my face blushing and my heart pounding. And just like that, we were together. In the 6 months we were together, Ethan was like a different person. The aloof, ice-cold Ethan was gone. "Caleb, lot of classes today? Are you tired?" He would ask me casually after work as he loosened his tie. I'd look up at him and say with a grin, "Not tired. I'm craving that little spot on the west side. Can we go?" "Of course. I'll have the driver make a reservation." I would happily throw myself into his arms. All I had to do was casually mention something I wanted to eat or something I wanted to have, and he would always keep it in mind and quietly make it happen. My closet was stuffed with more of the latest season's clothes than his own, all of which he'd had sent over. In moments of passion, he was the epitome of tenderness. He would hold me in his arms and kiss me patiently, from my forehead to my eyebrows, then to my lips, meticulous and lingering. When his teasing left me breathless and overwhelmed, with involuntary tears welling in my eyes, he would always gently kiss them away, whispering in my ear, "Shoo, don't cry, I'm here." Whenever our kisses deepened, especially when he guided me into a more intimate exchange, he would habitually reach up and gently cover my eyes. With my sight taken away, my other senses became incredibly sharp. At first, I wasn't used to it. I'd blink instinctively, my lashes brushing against his palm. He would pause and ask in a low voice, "Is this uncomfortable?" I would shake my head. "No, it's just, why do you always cover my eyes?" He paused for a moment before saying softly, "This way you'll focus more." The words themselves were so seductive that I gradually got used to it. He liked it, so I let him. That afternoon, when Ethan got home from work, I happily jumped into his arms and kissed him. My brother said he's coming back this weekend. Let's all have dinner together. The arm around my waist stiffened almost imperceptibly, then relaxed. "Okay, you must be happy Leo's coming back." His voice was light and smiling. I planned excitedly, "Yeah, I haven't seen him in 6 months. Can we go to that new Japanese place? My brother likes it too. Whatever you want." He bent down, kissed the top of my head, then once again gently covered my eyes and deepened the kiss. The day my brother Leo came back, I was so excited I could barely sit still all day. Ethan specially cleared his schedule to drive me to the airport to pick him up. When my brother emerged from the gate pushing a luggage cart, I couldn't help but run and jump on him like I did when we were kids. "Leo," my brother laughed and caught me. "You've gotten a little taller, but you're still such a klutz." His smile was as warm as ever as he looked me over carefully. Looks like Ethan's been taking good care of you. You've even put on some weight. I glanced subconsciously at Ethan, who was standing beside us. He had a faint smile on his face and nodded at my brother. It was a long flight. Not at all. You're the one who's had to deal with this little troublemaker of mine. I hope he hasn't been too much of a handful, my brother said with a hearty laugh, clapping Ethan on the shoulder in a natural, familiar gesture. Not at all. Caleb's been great, Ethan said, his voice steady. But I thought I caught a flicker of something incredibly complex in his eyes as he looked at my brother. That evening, my brother invited a few of our childhood friends over for dinner at the house. He had brought me a huge pile of gifts. Look, do you like them? I had to go to a bunch of different places to get all this, he said, presenting the gifts to me like treasure. I love them. Thanks, Leo. I hugged the presents, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. My brother had always been like that, wanting to give me the best of everything in the world. After dinner, someone suggested moving the party to a high-end bar they frequented for another round of drinks. My eyes immediately went to my brother. Leo, I want to go too. He shot me down without a second thought. No way. Those kinds of places are seedy. What would you be doing there? You're staying home.
I'm 20.
I'm not a kid anymore, I grumbled. So what if you're 20? You couldn't go even if you were 30, he said firmly. Leo's right, Caleb. You're still young. Places like that are complicated, one of his friends chimed in with a laugh. My shoulders slumped in disappointment. I knew I couldn't win against my brother. He was always like this, overly protective, keeping me under his wing. Seeing my dejected look, his tone softened. He leaned in and coaxed me in a low voice. Next time, I'll take you somewhere even more fun. I promise. Way better than a bar. Okay? I had no choice but to nod, though I still felt a little down. At that moment, I snuck a glance at Ethan, hoping he would say something on my behalf, or at least give me a comforting look. But what I saw made my heart sink a little. Ethan wasn't looking at me. He was standing by the window a little ways off, a glass of water in his hand. His gaze was fixed quietly on my brother, Leo. His eyes seemed to hold a faint sadness and an unspeakable tenderness. I had never seen that look before, as complex as a deep pool of water, and it made my chest tighten for some reason. Ethan, what are you spacing out for? Let's go. My brother called out. Ethan snapped back to reality, the strange emotions in his eyes receding like the tide, replaced by his usual calm. He put down his glass. Coming. As he passed me, he seemed to finally notice my mood. He stopped, reached out, and gently ruffled my hair, his tone its usual gentle self. Be good at home. We'll be back soon. Oh, okay, I replied, the unease from a moment ago somewhat dispelled by his affectionate gesture. Maybe I had imagined it. I watched them leave, talking and laughing. When the door closed, the huge house fell silent again. I hugged the gifts from my brother, my heart half full of joy at seeing him, and half with the lingering disappointment of not being able to go out. As for that flicker of unease from Ethan's gaze, I had already pushed it to the back of my mind. I was lost in the sweetness of first love, naively believing that the tenderness in his eyes bloomed only for me. After my brother Leo returned, he also stayed at Ethan's house. The vast, empty mansion that had previously held just me and Ethan was suddenly filled with life because of my brother's presence. I was happy, too, to be with the two most important people in my life. But soon, a subtle unease, like a tiny vine, began to creep into my heart. I was becoming more and more aware that Ethan's attitude towards my brother was good, unusually so. It wasn't just the care one shows a good friend, nor was it the casualness between buddies. It was an almost instinctive, meticulous attention and indulgence. Leo, drink this. At breakfast, Ethan would very naturally place a glass of warm water by my brother's hand, with the handle turned to the perfect position for him to grab. It was my brother's habit, one I hadn't even remembered that clearly. The weather's nice today, Leo. Want to go to the stables? You mentioned last time you wanted to try out that new horse. Ethan would make suggestions proactively, his tone carrying a barely perceptible excitement. When the three of us ate out, Ethan didn't even need my brother to speak before he reeled off a list of dishes to the waiter. They were all my brother's favorites, down to the exact flavor preferences. I couldn't help but be surprised. "Ethan, you remember all that so clearly." Ethan seemed to pause for a second, then smiled faintly and looked at my brother. "I'm used to it. He's a picky eater. If I don't remember, he'll complain." My brother laughed and pointed his chopsticks at Ethan. "Ethan, always calling me out. But you're right, you get me." The familiarity and trust in his voice were the natural result of more than a decade of friendship. Ethan watched my brother smile, his own eyes soft, a smile playing on his lips. That focused gaze, as if my brother was the only person in the world, made my heart ache with a strange jealousy. He had never looked at me like that. His gaze towards me was gentle, doting, but it always seemed like there was a barrier between us. Not direct and profound like it was now. Another time, my brother casually complained that the light in the study was a bit dim and tired his eyes when he was reading documents. The very next day, I found a brand new, expensive set of smart lights installed in the study, their brightness fully adjustable. Ethan said nothing, but when my brother used them, he let out a comfortable sigh and said with a smile, "Ethan, you're always so thoughtful." Ethan just gave a soft but I saw the tips of his ears turn a little red. Ethan was almost completely subservient to my brother. His kindness was tinged with a sort of caution, as if my brother were a precious treasure he needed to protect with the utmost care. As for me, while he was good to me, it felt more like a derivative kindness. A sour feeling started to grow inside me. That night, when my brother was out, I curled up in Ethan's arms and couldn't resist probing. "Ethan, you're so good to my brother. Better than you are to me." The hand stroking my hair paused. Then he chuckled softly. "Silly, what are you talking about? Your brother and I have been friends for years. Of course our bond is different." "Am I not good to you?" I mumbled, "but you never seem to refuse any of my brother's requests." Ethan's voice was calm. "That's because your brother rarely makes unreasonable requests. Besides, you're younger. There are some things I can't let you do, and it's for your own good." The explanation was perfectly reasonable, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I looked at Ethan's handsome face, so close to mine. He was looking down at me, his eyes gentle. I leaned in and kissed the corner of his mouth. He responded, but as the kiss deepened, he once again habitually covered my eyes. In the darkness, I suddenly remembered that my brother also had very beautiful eyes. They curved when he smiled. Were they a little bit like mine? The thought was like a cold needle, jabbing me unexpectedly. I shuddered. "What's wrong?" Ethan noticed, releasing his hand to ask with concern. "And nothing." I shook my head, burying my face in his chest to hide my panic. I must be overthinking things. Ethan liked me. He was so good to me, and we were so happy together. He was nice to my brother just because they were close. I tried desperately to convince myself, but I couldn't ignore the sourness in my heart. For the first time, I began to wonder. When Ethan looked at me, whose shadow was he really seeing? When he covered my eyes, was it because he didn't want to see clearly who he was kissing? The accident happened when I least expected it. I had gone to the study to find a finance textbook my brother urgently needed. There was a small issue with his project, and before he rushed out the door in a panic, he mentioned the book might be in Ethan's study. Ethan had been on the phone at the time, his brow furrowed, apparently dealing with an urgent work matter himself. He had gestured vaguely towards the study and hurried off, probably forgetting completely that the notebook he had been looking at was still lying open on his desk. I rarely entered his study on my own, it was his private domain. I carefully navigated around the desk piled high with documents, searching the bookshelf against the wall for the book my brother wanted. As my gaze swept across the desk, I saw my name on the open notebook, pulled my eyes in like a magnet. If only Caleb's eyes were like his. With that single sentence, my heart seemed to stop, and my blood ran cold. An icy chill shot up from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. As if possessed, my trembling hands turned the page. And another and another. The pages were filled with dense handwriting, the chronicle of a secret heart. It spanned years, from youthful infatuation to a deep, abiding love. And on almost every page, the same name appeared over and over, a name I knew to my very core. Leo. September 1st, 20 I saw a guy today. He was feeding stray cats by the side of the road. He was so clean, his smile so pure. He was kind of beautiful. November 2nd, 20 I ran into him again. We were introduced by a friend. His name is Leo. I learned his family situation isn't great. He just has a younger brother. He works so hard to get where he is. He's incredible. December 1st, 20 I think I'm falling for Leo. He's too pure. I've wanted to be with him since the first time I saw him. May 1st, 20 I got in a fight and Leo came to help me. He took a club to the arm for me, broke his bone. I think I'm completely in love with him. May 9th, 20 I am taking care of Leo in the hospital. He's so cute. How could someone so gentle have had such a hard life? September 2nd, 20 Leo told me there's a girl he likes. It hurts so much, but there's nothing I can do. He likes girls. I can't ruin him. October 3rd, 20 he and the girl broke up. He got wasted and cried in my arms. He's such a good person. That girl has no taste. September 10th, 20 Leo told me his brother is starting college near me. He's going abroad for a year and asked if I could look after him for a while. Of course, I'd do anything for him. September 12th, 20 I met Leo's brother. They look so much alike, but I have no patience for anyone but Leo. September 30th, 20 Leo's angry. His brother got a fever, and I didn't notice in time. How could I let Leo get angry? October 18th, 20 Leo started dating someone. I couldn't stop myself from getting drunk. That night, I mistook his brother for him. I thought it was him. October 19th, 20 I did something horrible. I'm with his brother now. When I cover Caleb's eyes, it's like I can see Leo. I know I'm a bastard, but I can't help it. June 5th, 20 If only Caleb's eyes were like his. The ink on the last entry looked like it was still wet, but it cut through my last shred of hope like the sharpest blade. So all of it, the gentle affection, the constant indulgence, the late-night company and meticulous care, it was all stolen. It was because of my brother's grace, because I had the good fortune of this similar face. The person he saw through me was never Caleb. It was the man he could never have, the man he had loved for 8 long years. Leo. Tears surged without warning, blurring my vision. I clamped my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. What I had thought was my great luck was, from beginning to end, a complete fraud. And I was nothing more than a pathetic, laughable substitute in a play where the main character was absent. Ethan, the person he loved, from the very beginning was never me. I don't know how I managed to stumble back to my room. I just felt cold all over. All that was left was a hollow numbness and waves of nausea I couldn't control. That night, I came down with a fever, even more violent than the last time. I thought I heard my brother's anxious voice, felt his warm hand on my forehead again and again. How did he get so sick again? Ethan, call a doctor. Quickly. My brother's voice was filled with a panic I'd never heard before. In my confusion, I think I heard Ethan's voice, too, saying something to my brother. Leo, don't worry, the doctor's on his way. He probably caught a chill during the day and hasn't been resting well. I don't want to hear his voice. With all my strength, I grabbed my brother's sleeve, my voice hoarse and weak. Leo, make him leave, I don't want to see him. Get him out. The room fell silent for a moment. I struggled to open my heavy eyelids. Through my blurry vision, I saw Ethan's complex gaze on my face, a look of understanding and deep, dark resignation. He seemed to get it. He understood why my attitude had changed so suddenly. Although my brother didn't know what was going on, he always gave in to me. He looked at me, then back at Ethan, his expression apologetic and questioning. Ethan, Caleb is... Ethan's throat bobbed, but in the end, he said nothing. Then, he nodded silently, turned, and left the room, gently closing the door behind him. The moment the door clicked shut, it was as if my tightly wounded nerves snapped. All the hurt, the heartache, the shame of being deceived, burst forth like a flood. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I threw myself into my brother's arms and began to sob uncontrollably. Wah, leo. I cried so hard I could barely breathe, like a child abandoned by the entire world. My brother was terrified. He held me tightly, his warm hand patting my back again and again, his voice trembling with pain. Caleb, don't cry. I'm here. I'm right here. Tell me what happened. Who hurt you? Was it Ethan? At the sound of that name, I cried even harder, just shaking my head, unable to say a word. How could I tell him? Tell him that his best friend, the person he had loved and yearned for all these years, was actually him? Tell him that I was just a pathetic pawn in a twisted charade? It was too cruel. It would be a huge blow and a betrayal for my brother, too. He had already done so much for me, I couldn't make him bear this, too. Seeing he couldn't get anything out of me besides hysterical crying, my brother sighed heavily and stopped asking. He just held me tighter, gently rubbing his chin against the top of my head. Just like he used to comfort me countless times when I was little, his voice was low and steady. Okay, you don't have to talk about it. No matter what happened, I'm here. I'll protect you. If the sky falls, I'll hold it up for you. It's okay now. Go ahead, cry it all out. My brother's embrace was as warm and reliable as ever, his promise the only source of warmth in this cold, desperate moment. After the fever subsided, my body slowly recovered, but the hole in my heart just wouldn't close. I tugged on my brother's sleeve, my voice still weak from being sick, but my tone was firm. Leo, I want to go home. I don't want to live here anymore. My brother's hand, which was peeling an apple for me, paused. He looked up in surprise. What's wrong? Is it uncomfortable here? Or? He hesitated, then asked tentatively, did you and Ethan have a fight? He looked genuinely confused. In his eyes, Ethan was a mature, stable, and completely trustworthy older brother figure. And I, though 20, was forever the little brother who needed looking after. We were 6 years apart, with different life experiences and social circles. What kind of irreconcilable conflict could we possibly have? Couldn't explain. I just lowered my gaze, shook my head, and repeated we didn't fight. I just don't want to live here anymore. I want to go back to our own home. My brother looked at my stubborn, pale face and was silent for a moment. He knew me. He knew I wasn't the type to throw a tantrum for no reason. There had to be a reason for my insistence. But seeing as he couldn't get anything out of me, he finally let out a soft sigh. He reached out, ruffled my hair, and his tone was as understanding as ever. Okay, if you don't want to live here, we won't. My little Caleb is all grown up now with his own ideas. He handed me the peeled apple, his eyes gentle. My project abroad is almost finished anyway. Once I wrap things up in the next 6 months, I'll come back and stay with you for good. I'm not leaving ever again. Leo. My eyes instantly reddened. My brother was incredibly efficient. He quickly found a cozy apartment for me, not far from campus. The day we moved out, Ethan was in the living room. My brother explained to him, a bit sheepishly, Ethan, I'm so sorry about this. I've really spoiled this kid. He can be a bit willful. Please don't take it personally. I hid behind my brother, my head down, staring intently at the tips of my shoes, refusing to look at Ethan. I could feel a heavy gaze on me. After a long moment, I heard Ethan's voice, carrying his usual gentle tone he reserved for my brother. It's fine. His happiness is what's most important. He paused, then continued, if you need help with anything, just call me. Leo, you're always welcome here. To my brother, his words were the generous offer of a good friend. But to me, every word was like a needle dipped in ice. I bit my lip hard, afraid I would lose control. As the car pulled away, I couldn't help but look back. Through the rear window, I saw Ethan still standing at the door. In the autumn sunlight, his tall figure was the same, his face a blur, but for some reason, he looked utterly alone. I quickly turned away and closed my eyes. It was all over. After moving back to my brother's and my old apartment, I couldn't muster any energy. My brother thought I hadn't fully recovered from my illness and insisted on taking me back to the hospital for N4. At the hospital, I leaned against a cold chair, my heart a barren wasteland. I had been so well protected by my brother. The first time I had ever loved someone with all my heart, I was met with such a sordid truth. The blow nearly shattered every beautiful illusion I'd had about love for the past 20 years. Just then, my brother's phone rang. It was an urgent call from his project partners overseas. He had to get online and deal with it immediately. My brother's brow furrowed, and he looked at my weak, listless form with extreme reluctance. "Caleb, I have to go back and handle something urgent. It won't take long, just an hour, okay?" he said, crouching in front of me, holding the hand without the fore, his voice full of guilt. I managed a weak smile. "Go ahead, Leo. I'm fine. It's just in 4. My brother hesitated, then finally sighed in resignation. He stood up, walked to the side, and made a call. I could vaguely hear him lowering his voice. "Ethan, yeah, at the hospital I have an emergency. Could you come over and watch Caleb for me for a little while? Just a bit, thanks." My heart sank. "No, I don't want to see him." I wanted to object, but my brother had already hung up and was hastily telling me, "Caleb, Ethan's on his way. You be good, okay? I'll be back as soon as I can." Not long after, the door to the room was pushed open gently. Ethan's tall figure appeared in the doorway. His gaze fell on me, complex and unreadable. He walked slowly to the chair by my bed and sat down. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. After a long while, he was the one to speak first, his voice low and hoarse. "Feeling any better?" I turned my head away, not wanting to answer him. He didn't seem surprised by my coldness and continued on his own. "I know you saw the diary." I whipped my head around to glare at him. Tears instantly welled in my eyes, but I fought to keep them from falling.
"Caleb, I'm sorry."
"I know what I did was wrong. I used you and I hurt you." His apology felt weightless. My voice trembled with emotion. Is a single sorry supposed to fix everything? "Ethan, I'm a person. I have a heart. What did you take me for? A substitute for my brother? A toy you could play with whenever you wanted?" Faced with my accusations, Ethan was silent for a moment. Then, he looked at me and said something that plunged me into an icy abyss. "Yes, I was wrong. But Caleb, I don't regret it." I could hardly believe my ears. Tears finally broke free. How could you say you don't regret it? You trampled all over my feelings for you. You made me feel like a joke. Don't you have any conscience at all?" A flicker of extreme pain crossed Ethan's face, but it was quickly replaced by an almost fanatical obsession. "Because I love him that much, Caleb. I've loved your brother for 8 years. From the first moment I saw him, he was like a light that shone into my stagnant life. But I can't have him. I can never have him." His voice was raspy with desperation. Only by looking at your face, which is so similar to his. Only when I was kissing you, covering your eyes, could I lie to myself that for just one moment, the one I was holding was him. His words were like poison-tipped daggers, carving out my last scraps of dignity and hope. I broke down sobbing. "Then what about me? Ethan, do I just deserve all this? Does my love deserve to be trampled on like this?" Tears streamed down my face, and I could barely catch my breath. And Ethan, he closed his eyes and murmured, "I'm sorry, Caleb, but I can't control it." Just then, with a loud bang, the door to the room was thrown open. Ethan and I both turned in shock. There stood my brother, Leo, his face ashen, his body trembling. He was still holding his car keys. He must have been worried about me and come back, only to hear the ugliest truth of all. Time seemed to freeze. "Ethan." My brother squeezed out his name through clenched teeth, his voice distorted with pure rage. The moment Ethan saw him, the color drained from his face. He scrambled to his feet. "Leo, how did I come back? If I hadn't, how would I have ever known this is how my best friend was taking care of my little brother?" Leo walked towards them, each step like he was treading on his own shattered heart. Without any warning, he raised his hand. Smack! A sharp, resounding slap landed squarely on Ethan's face. The force was so great that Ethan's head snapped to the side, a clear red handprint immediately blooming on his cheek. Ethan didn't flinch, didn't even make a sound. He just slowly turned his head back, looking at his furious friend. His eyes filled with a soul-crushing pain and despair. That pain wasn't for me, it was because of Leo's anger and disappointment in him. "I'm sorry, Leo," he said in a low, humble, hoarse voice. Leo's chest heaved, his eyes as cold as if he'd never met the man standing before him. "Ethan, I treated you like a brother. I entrusted my only family to you. And this is how you repay me? This is what you do to Caleb? How could you be such a bastard?" Ethan's lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but under Leo's icy gaze, the words died. He was like a collapsing mountain of snow, leaving only shame and ruin. Leo pointed to the door, his voice unwavering and final. "I don't want to see you right now, and I don't want to see you ever again. Get out." Ethan took one last, deep look at Leo. It was an impossibly complex look, filled with love, regret, and agony, which all finally dissolved into a dead, ashen gray. He said nothing more, just turned silently and left the room. The moment the door closed, it was as if all the strength had been drained from my brother. He stumbled, leaning against the wall, then slowly slid to the floor. Watching him, I felt an unbearable ache in my chest. After a moment, Leo struggled to his feet and walked over to my bed. He looked at my tear-streaked face, his own eyes red-rimmed. He reached out with a trembling hand and carefully pulled me into his arms, just like he did when I was hurt as a child. "Caleb, I'm so sorry. It's my fault. I was so blind. I didn't protect you." My brother's voice choked, and a hot tear fell onto my neck. "I'm sorry, Caleb. I'm so sorry." I hugged him back and cried my heart out in his arms. The 6-month trip was a gentle healing process. My brother put all his work aside to travel with me, to see mountains and oceans. Even better, as the trip was winding down, he got a call from back home. After he hung up, he told me he was planning to propose to his girlfriend. I was genuinely happy for him. My brother deserved the best the world had to offer, including a sincere, mutual love. We returned to our long-missed home. However, one afternoon, the doorbell rang. I was curled up on the sofa reading when my brother went to get the door. Through a crack in the entryway, I saw someone I thought I would never see again. Ethan. He was much thinner, his once impeccable clothes looking a bit disheveled. The cool indifference in his eyes had been replaced by a deep-seated exhaustion. He just stood there like a wilted plant. His gaze, both greedy and cautious, was fixed on my brother's face. Leo was clearly not expecting him either. His body tensed, and his expression darkened. He instinctively glanced back at me with a reassuring look, then said in a low voice, "Caleb, why don't you go upstairs?" I knew what he was doing. He didn't want me to face Ethan again, didn't want to dredge up those painful memories. I nodded obediently, closed my book, and started up the stairs. But at the landing, I stopped, hidden in the shadows, and couldn't help but look down. My brother didn't let Ethan in. They just stood there at the doorway, the oppressive atmosphere palpable even from a distance. "Leo," Ethan began, his voice raspy and dry, almost pleading. I know I have no right to see you, but these past 6 months, I've regretted it every single day. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong." My brother had his back to me, so I couldn't see his face, but his posture was rigid and straight. His voice was as cold as ice. "Ethan, some mistakes can't be erased with an apology. I know I wronged Caleb, and I wronged you even more." Ethan's voice grew agitated. He took a step forward as if to grab my brother's arm, but Leo jerked away. "Don't touch me," my brother snapped, his voice laced with clear disgust. "Ethan, when I see you, all I can think about is how you deceived my brother, how you used his feelings for you. And I remember how stupid I was to call someone like you my best friend." The color drained from Ethan's face. His lips trembled, his eyes filled with a devastating pain. "Leo, please don't say that after all our years of friendship." "Friendship?" My brother scoffed. "The moment you started having those kinds of thoughts about my brother, there was nothing left between us. Ethan, let me tell you something. I don't forgive you. I hate you. The word hate landed like a sledgehammer on Ethan's heart. He staggered back a step, swaying, barely able to stay on his feet. He looked at my brother, the last glimmer of light in his eyes extinguished, leaving only an endless expanse of despair and ruin. "Get out," my brother said, turning away, no longer looking at him. His voice was weary and final. "Don't ever show your face to me again, and don't bother Caleb. As for us, it's like we never knew each other." Ethan stood frozen for a long time, so long I thought he might turn to stone. Finally, without another word, he took one last, deep, almost desperate look at my brother's back, as if searing the image into his very soul. Then he turned silently and, with heavy steps, disappeared into the light outside the door. My brother stood there for a long time before slowly closing the door. He leaned against it, tilted his head back, and let out a long, heavy sigh. I quietly retreated to my room, my heart a jumble of emotions. I went to the window and saw Ethan get into his car below, looking completely lost, but he didn't drive away immediately. He just sat there, still, as if his soul had been ripped out. I drew the curtains, shutting out the world outside. I gave a bitter, silent laugh. Ethan never loved me. The source of his heart-wrenching pain wasn't that he had hurt me. It was that he had completely lost the right to be near my brother, Leo, and had destroyed the friendship he had so carefully maintained for years. His world had tilted on its axis because of my brother. And with my brother's words, "I hate you," it had shattered completely. 6 months later, I heard sporadic news about Ethan from mutual friends I couldn't avoid. He did something that stunned our entire social circle. He gave up his position as the heir to his family's fortune, turning his back on a vast business empire and enviable power. Then he vanished. He traveled to many places, mostly remote and even harsh regions. Rumor had it he was funding schools and building medical clinics there, doing the kind of small-scale, hands-on charity work that the high and mighty prince he used to be would have never touched. I don't know if he was punishing himself, searching for some kind of redemption in the world, or simply trying to escape an environment filled with memories of my brother. But I didn't want to dig any deeper, and I no longer cared to know. I deleted every trace of him from my phone. I started focusing more on my studies and my future. I was never a slacker to begin with, and thanks to my brother's doting and Ethan's once meticulous cultivation, my knowledge and perspective far exceeded my peers. I was accepted into an exchange program at a top university, and a project I was part of received significant recognition. I slowly came to understand that one bad relationship couldn't define my life. I deserved a love that was honest, a love that was for me, Caleb, and me alone, not as anyone's shadow or substitute. My brother's engagement party was warm and romantic. Watching him stand with his fiancée, their faces glowing with genuine happiness, I was truly happy for him. Occasionally, in the dead of night, the image of Ethan's eyes, filled with despair and pain, might flash through my mind. But my heart no longer stirred. It was more like a distant, blurry story. A story about a man who was obsessed and fanatical, and who, in the end, lost himself completely.